All right, here we are today at the Crystal Clearpoint Studios with Lou Ann Morris, and Crystal's on her way, and me, Deborah Colleen Rose, and we have as our special guest today, Martha Decker. And she is our our head hunter.
You'll hunt your head after it's
maybe
dead.
somewhere else.
our head ghost hunter. And so I screwed up last week, and Luann and I got so excited, and Crystal was at the Renaissance Fair, and we said, let's screw it. Let's just do a podcast anyway, and let's talk about our preliminary investigation on the haunted house. And then we're like, we forgot to call Martha. So we want Martha's input because she has been to the place many, many times. She knows the people that own the house really well, and we really need her input. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that we forgot to talk about last week. So I'm going to turn it over to Martha and to Luann, and I'll throw my 2 cents in when I think it's worth 2 cents, or I won't. So
How did it start, Martha? How did you know that there were things going on at this house?
Because they called me.
And
how did they go to call you, Martha?
So the couple that owned the house, he had called me. Somebody had referred him to me about a case somewhere else, and to use me. They were looking for a psychic and an unsolved murder and so on and so forth. And so that's how I met him initially. And then he had bought a house, had lived in it for a tiny bit of time, and then they moved into their mobile home, or their travel trailer there. And he started to rebuild the house. The house is probably 3 times its original size. He's added on to it so much and made it huge. It was just very small wood frame house. It was built in 1910. But while he said that there were some things that happened when they were just living in the house, it wasn't until they really started to do the remodeling and adding on and pulling everything out that activity started ramping up. I figured out what was going on there, and then it wasn't as bad. And then it started ramping up, and he called me. He was calling me once a year, twice a year, and I was going over there. But they bought antique furniture for the house, mainly from an estate sale. I bought a few other pieces here and there, but the bulk of it came from one estate sale where all the furniture had been in the same family for several generations. So he was the first person, probably out of almost 100 years, that had owned that furniture. And it was when the furniture that came in, everything started going really crazy.
So 2 interesting points, I think. First of all, the gentleman owner of this house is law enforcement. So I think that is important to know. I don't know about you, but that adds validity.
I wasn't trying to publicize that.
Well, oh wow. They're going to know if they look up the house. They're going to know if they look up the house.
That's why I didn't say that. Yeah, but when I talk like this, I don't generally broadcast it.
Right. But I don't think he has a problem with that, because I think it adds to the legitimacy of the input. We're not dealing with hysteria here, and
No.
You and I both know that sometimes there's a lot of hysteria that you deal with because people's imaginations run wild. And he is very logical, very practical, very step by step, because that's his training. The other thing I think is interesting to note is that for me, it's just that all the furniture came from the same house out of Dallas. So, I just think that's an interesting point to know. It's not like it came from France or, because the Jefferson Hotel, they have a lot of things that come from Europe that's in their hotel and things like that. So did you check out? Are you still with us?
I'm still with you. I had a phone call that came through.
Okay, because I saw you mute. So
yeah, it did it automatic. Since I'm on my phone, I can't block the phone calls.
Got it. Got it.
So-
So did you ever find your notes, Luann? Because your notebook
Yes.
was not in my car.
I'm looking at my notes right now that we made. So it was built at another site
1910. It was built
in
in 1910.
1910.
And it was built in a different location, and which was only a few miles away. The bulk of the family related to this house, including the man who built it in 1910, all live fairly local, or not live. They don't live, but they're all fairly local within several cemeteries. And the owner has managed to locate the bulk of the people that I have. Me and Vicky, another person that goes with me when I investigate, we had given him a list of names, and he was able to find all of those people, and actually found where they're all buried.
Oh,
Should we send them invitations to the house when we're going to be there?
but didn't the homeowner have an encounter with who he thought was the owner or the builder of the house?
Oh yeah, he's had several. Had multiple encounters with him. It was Vicky and I gave him the name, and he also found the man who built the house, and also inside the house on shiplap is the man who built the house, his signature, his son's signature, and then his father's signatures are all inside on shiplap that's preserved in the house. There was a mirror that I have the vanity and the mirror that was in one room that they've had a little more activity in than some of the others. And he sees orbs quite often in the house, not through a camera, not taking pictures with his phone, but orbs that he sees with his eyes. You know, there's a big difference between an orb and dust. So he was taking a picture for his wife because she was not quite believing everything. Not that he was lying, but it was more of an eye roll thing, like, sure, you're seeing this stuff in there. And when he did snap that photo, he ended up with a reflection in the mirror of the man who built the house, and he knows it's that man because he found photos of this man and of his sons. And I've seen those photos. I have a copy of the photo of the man in the mirror, and it was somebody else who was a friend of his wife's who actually pointed that out and asked her who that guy was. And so
this is a side note. I'm sorry, Martha, you cut out and I thought you were done. This is a side note. Everybody will make fun of orbs. Have you noticed how people kind of discount orbs lately, and they're dust this and dust that? But they'll go there with you just when they say, well, I see shadows, or I see shadows out of the corners of my eyes. And nobody seems to question that, but everybody kind of has this attitude lately about orbs. And I don't understand that. If you can see shadows, why can't you see light?
Well, first of all, it's not a now thing. As long as I've been investigating, people have been calling dust and bugs and dew and all that orbs, so everybody within the paranormal community who's been around for a while will roll their eyes at orbs, because orbs are not that common. Orbs are real, but they're not that common. And you have to explain the difference, or when I teach people, I teach them the difference between an orb and something else, because an orb emits its own light, where the others, if it's not an orb, it's reflecting light. And trying to teach people the difference, because these are things that they can't see. And probably one of the easiest ways to learn is go outside somewhere where it's even kind of dusty at night, and take your camera, your phone, whatever you're doing, and put it up by your face with a flash on, but with your eye away from, but like level with the lens, and snap a picture. And when that flash goes out there, you'll literally see millions of things reflecting light. And that is probably 99.5% of orbs are just that. They're not orbs.
They're reflecting light instead of giving off light.
Exactly. There's a huge difference. Yeah.
Well, it's
because
always funny.
Well, I get them, people like with have me with the East Texas Paranormal. I get emails, I get phone calls all the time from people saying there's orbs and this and that. And when they send the photos to me, it's not paranormal at all. It's just other things. And it's just trying to teach them, about the difference.
And that brings up a really good point about us as a team and as a group of people and as individuals. We are the DFW Paranormal Investigations. We investigate. We don't take everything at face value. And while we know that there are certain things that do exist, just because you think it exists in that moment doesn't mean that it does. And there is a criteria for measuring certain things and to evaluating certain things. And no, it's not definitive proof. I don't think there's anything that we can do that's definitive proof, but there is things that we can do to play devil's advocate to eliminate false information.
Yeah, and that's what you do. You go out there and you try to not even necessarily go debunk, so to speak, but that's where the skeptical part of me comes in too, is you go in there and only once you have ruled out everything it could be that's not paranormal, can you say that it is.
Right. Right. So what was your takeaway from what we did last week? I mean, what did you walk away? First of all, has your opinion about anything changed? Because you've been out there numerous times. And what was your takeaway in general?
The same thing, because I do know that house is active. I've been over there enough. I've experienced enough that I know that there's really activity there. So my takeaway is no different than any other time I've been over there. I know that it's active. It was much more peaceful this time. And the wife is much more comfortable than she was initially.
Yeah. She seemed very, very comfortable with it. I was really surprised based on the history I'd heard and stuff, but she seemed very okay with it. So, Luann, what other questions had come up? And Martha, you said we got some of our details off kilter. Do you remember what they were and what we need to?
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, I mentioned
don't remember. I didn't make it.
It's because we're old.
I mentioned in 1970 is when they moved the house to where it is now. And that's when the homeowners started working on it, making it twice, 3 times the size.
No. They've only had that house a few years.
Oh, okay.
They've only had the
house. It was a rent house, right?
It was, whoever, took the house and moved the house eventually. And I don't know how many people owned it before. The owner before the current owners had it as a rent house. So there'd been multiple people through the house. There was alleged drug house. So the typical stuff, and it was a small 3 bedrooms. I think one would have been very small, 1 bath house. It was just a small house, wood frame house.
Mm-hmm.
Which was pretty typical for the time that it was built, that type of thing. So.
Yeah.
It's really funny to think, though, that house was a rent house and very tiny at one time, because it is just gorgeous. It is a great combination of modern and historical architecture and conveniences. And while it still maintains the character of the time period it was originally built in, it's just a phenomenal house.
Well, it was important to him, and he ended up doing a lot of the work himself, because there were people hired to do work on the house, but there was activity while they were doing that, so they wouldn't come back. So he's ended up doing a lot of it himself. He's taken all the shiplap that he could salvage from the house and and he has interspersed that all throughout the house. So there's parts of the original house in the new
Everywhere.
parts as well.
Right. And that impressed me, that he wanted to preserve that part to, because he said not only that, he hammered everything.
He put it in just like they did in 1910. He put it back in himself, by hand with a hammer. He the people who were there initially and taking things down, because he's working, he has a full-time job. He has a one board where the man wrote, this house cost, X amount of money in 1910. That's all preserved perfectly. But then the shiplap piece that had the 3 signatures, he pointed that out to the people who were there and said, whatever you do, do not destroy this, do not cut it, keep it intact. Well, they cut right through the middle of it. And that really upset him. He has that, and that is in the house somewhere around, all that stuff's around the main bedroom and the bathroom, closet, and all that general area, because the signatures and the part where this house was built in 1910 are in what had been the hall at one time.
What was really interesting is that the house was very peaceful, even though we did have activity while we were there. But I still can't get over that stupid ghost box calling me a bitch. I'm still mad about that. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? You don't know me. I'll show you, bitch.
Well, I hate to say it, but
Well,
most
it
of
may
the time
call
when
you
you
other
hear it,
things too.
when you hear it on the ghost box, it's not the ghost box that's calling you that.
Well, I don't care who it was or what it was. How dare they? They don't know me.
You have such a strong personality. They didn't like that. It's like, know your place, woman.
Yeah. 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 I put them in their place, I believe. I think I answered them back equally with equal energy.
There was a time frame as a man who built our house and used to live next door, who asked my husband several years after we bought this house. We were at a party he was holding. He sat down dead serious, and Ken and I were both sitting there, and he looks at him and says, well, you going to get her with the program this year?
What?
What program is that,
Still
sir?
laugh about that. No, I'm not going to. Nope.
I should have told people when I introduced you, Martha, because I just assume everybody knows who you are. You've been on several of my podcasts in the years past when we were doing the spiritual neighborhood and stuff. But Martha has written books about the paranormal. She's a published author, and she does paranormal investigations quite a bit. And she does all the talk circuits at the different paranormal conventions. And but to me, I always get a kick. I always say I'm friends with the woman that was on the Jack Osborne show, Portals to Hell. I just love telling people that, and Martha has done tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of investigations at the Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells, which is a very active house if you track any kind of paranormal activity and stuff. So this is Martha's claim to fame, which is why anything she says or anytime she has an opinion, I want to hear it. I may not always agree with her, but I'm not going to argue with her either. So
right. Except
or
when I'm not.
I'll have something else calling me a bitch. What, Luann? What, Luann?
I'm just thinking about the house, and because wow, that's different.
There's Crystal.
Well, hello, Crystal.
You're muted. So our lounging goddess is here.
But I think that because of
hey guys. All right, so there is
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Crystal got bit
it's
by
spread.
something.
It has spread even since I saw you this morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I ran into Crystal at the doctor's office today. We have the same doctor. And then she went to another doctor. We're interviewing Martha right now about the prelim
Oh,
investigation that we did on the
oh,
paranormal.
wonderful. I want to hear all about it.
All right. So what were you saying, Luann?
Just that because of Martha's experiences there, and then after we were there and found out that there wasn't really anything, shall we say, that needed to be gotten rid of at the moment, that we decided that this would be a good location to try to introduce people to ghost hunting and what it's really about, instead of some of those things you see on TV.
Can we call over at that house? It's not going to really be ghost hunting. It's going to be investigation.
Yes.
Tell people what the difference is between an investigation and hunting, since you wanted to clarify.
Well, hunting is a term that I really don't like to use, because you don't have to hunt ghosts. I would hunt rabbits or squirrels or deer, something that's going to be put
Right there.
on my plate to eat.
100. I like that.
I used to
Well,
hunt men at the bars. Does that count?
Well, yeah,
No.
when I was 17, 18, yeah, 19, I would go in and see which one I wanted at the time.
Yeah.
But
I'll take that
but
one
in
and
an,
that one and that one.
but in an investigation is just what it sounds like. It's an investigation. You're trying to determine who, what, why something is occurring, or if it is occurring. Because many times I get calls and there's just really not anything there. I find that when I do an extensive interview with somebody, or even when I do an initial interview, I ask them how many paranormal shows do they watch. And I have found through the years, because I've been investigating, over 30 years, that when somebody says they watch all the shows, the first, and there's been quite a bit, that the first place their mind goes when they hear a creak or groan it's a demon usually.
Mhm.
And for me, with activity in my house, even that's like the last thing I even think about.
Well, I
Well,
figure the
I grew
house
up,
is just like our bones. If it's not creaking, it's not moving,
yeah, that I grew up in, growing up, if your house didn't make some kind of noise, whether it was creaking or groaning or weird crunching sounds, even sometimes, or the plumbing knocking, that's just normal, when you're of a certain age and you're growing up. I can't remember a house or an apartment growing up that there wasn't some kind of noise. So I'm with you there. I used to do the psychic fair circuit, and have occasionally been called upon to cleanse houses and stuff like that. And I'm just like, 9 times out of 10, it's nothing there. It's imaginary. It's just the physicality of the age of the home, and that sort of thing. So yes, ma'am. I love you already, Martha.
Oh, thank you. Well, wait, you don't know me yet. What?
Yeah, wait, hold that thought. Ironically,
But
though, I have never seen a paranormal show, investigation show, until you were on Jack Osborne's show. I'd never seen one. And so then I watched Jack, because I just love Jack. He's so cute. And he's so cute because he gets freaked out over everything. You're like, dude, this is your show. You got to stay in the house and quit running out. He's so funny. And I've only watched maybe one or two at your recommendation because you thought it was funny or whatever. But I don't get the thrill. I have to be honest. I don't get the thrill of those shows. They just, they irritate me, and because they don't do the investigation the way I think they should. They get way over emotional. And that's one of the things I love about you is Martha's like, okay, something touched my leg. Do I see anything? No. Is the wind blowing? Well, a little bit, so maybe that moved my I mean, she goes through this process of elimination, but she's not going to be jumping up screaming like a little girl running out of the house. That's what I love.
no, I'll be running towards it. Of course, I also have that law enforcement background too. So You know, that's part of my nature, is to try to figure out what's going on because of all those years of, you know, being a detective. That makes the
Yeah.
difference. I think, you know, probably one of the best ways to think of hunting versus investigation. I've talked to a number of younger teams that have just formed, and if they get a phone call from somebody who says things are going on, the first thing they do is they run to that house to try to prove what the homeowner said was occurring. So they're going hunting, looking for what the homeowner said, where I go in open-minded, you know, unbiased. And I just kind of let things fall where they fall, like you would in any normal investigation. And I think that might be an easy way. I hadn't really thought about that way, but that might be, you know, some people use the words interchangeably. I just don't like using that word hunt because I don't hunt.
No, I like it. I like that. And the thing that I loved was, like, when we went to San Antonio several months ago, I'm trying to do my thing, which is I'm all over the fence. You know, I'm on both sides of the fence, and Martha's doing her thing, and she's already done 3 levels of investigation before we even got down there. And I'm just trying to get kind of tuned into my energy. And the woman kept talking to me. Martha goes, "Can you just be quiet and let her do her job?" You know, she's
What?
just so practical. So
Well-
practical. It's a
We
joy
had
to
to
work
keep
with.
pulling her back. We had to keep pulling her back to reality. She was like somebody who had a mental problem, almost like a schizophrenic or somebody on meth, or how you have to just keep pulling them back to where you are. And if, you know, forget about that stuff. We're talking about now. We're not talking about 20 years ago. And I used to do that, you know, in law enforcement all the time. Somebody would want to tell you all this stuff that didn't have anything to do with why you were there, and you had to do the same. So I don't even think about it. You know, when I start doing the social history with them on their interviews, I stop every now and then because it hits me that sounds like I'm booking them into jail because I'm asking all the exact same questions. You know, I mean everything.
Well, I was
Well-
talking to my granddaughter the other day about maybe doing like a comic book on ghost investigations. And I'm like, yeah. And I said, I want a character like this. I said, it's a female. She comes in wearing a long Western trench coat, you know, like they used to wear. And she says, "All right, I'm here. What's going on?" That's the way I see you.
Well,
Oh,
isn't
gosh.
that why we want to do this paranormal workshop? We want to let people know that there is a difference between being what I consider real and sensational for TV.
Well,
I mean, we're
TV
going in to read the house.
Right. In TV, people think that everything is real on the TV shows. And I always remind them that TV is for entertainment.
Yep.
Not for education, but for entertainment. And that there's a few shows that do not fake stuff, but the majority of them fake stuff.
I
Some of
need
them
that
will
list
buy
of the
EVPs
genuine
that people,
ones.
well, you can go back and watch some Paranormal Declassified. I don't know
Okay.
if they're making any more, but that's with Paul Beeben, and he had done the there was another declassified history type show that he had done. He's never done any paranormal. Watch Death Walker by Nick Groff. He was also at Hill House, and I was always there, and I was there, and I was interviewed when he did that. He's supposed to come back because he didn't really put the interviews on his first episode, but there was quite a lot of experience. And like what Deborah said, we're doing the interview. I'm standing in the living room. The scratch room in the house with activity is behind me. The doors are open, and it's Nick interviewing me, and then his cousin was a cameraman. And we got one low growl or hiss that I knew was Toby, what they call Toby over there. But it was fairly low. But when we're wrapping up, you get a really loud one, and it was really funny because it was so loud. Nick's eyes just start bugging out, getting bigger and bigger, and he looks at his cousin, and I look at him, and I just go, "Nah, that's just Toby."
Well, I had someone ask me the other day about the class and the investigation, and they said, "Well, what are you going to do if nothing happens?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "What do you want me to do?" And I said, "We're not going to fake it." I said, "I faked orgasms for years. I'm not faking anything else, you know?"
Just not know.
Nope. I mean, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I mean, it's just like, you show up at someone's house, and if they're not at home, you don't go in their house just because they're not
Well,
there.
Well,
Yeah, you can't. Well, you can't guarantee. And their house is. There was stuff you picked up on. You can feel it once you're kind of attuned to things. But now there's no, because there's stuff doesn't happen every day, all day long. They want that. They can go rent Haunted Hill House in Mineral Wells for the night, because there it goes on every day, all day long.
Well, and because
That-
they have so much in that house too,
Yeah.
and everything. So,
And
But
and
you
they
Mineral
give an
Wells
open,
is just a.
it's just
I
a
was gonna
town of
say
what?
mineral. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I don't know a lot about mineral wells, but one thing I do know is everything I've read or even seen on the television, there's always something somewhere that's haunted or has some sort of activity from what I've seen uh out there in mineral wells, and I
Well,
want to visit it so badly.
well, there's a lot of stuff that some people say is haunted that is not. They're making up things. The
Yeah.
Baker has some activity. The Haunted Hill House is catty corner to the Baker. There are tunnels from the Baker to Haunted Hill House and to the church. There's, uh, tunnels throughout the city. But there's been some scam. There's been several scam artists that have gone in there with properties and claimed that they're haunted when they weren't. They've made up stories that
But there's
weren't
an
true.
explanation for the level of activity that is
The,
there. First of all,
Yeah.
mineral wells used to be a gathering place for people that had mood disorders because there's actual lithium in the water supply there. So people would go there to get the water. They didn't understand it, why it helped them, but it did. And it was the lithium in the water that would help solve a lot of, and calm their moods down. So we have all this energy from people that are emotionally out of balance showing up, living
Yeah.
there, that type of thing. Also, at one time, Mineral Wells was considered as a good stopping place for the mafia as they were traveling from the south to the north and the north to the south. And they even considered turning that into like a little mafia. Hot Springs is a little mafia as well. So we had that negative energy that was in and out of the city as well. And then the thing with the tunnels is still interesting, and we don't have a complete explanation about all the tunneling and the portals and different things that go on in that city. So you have a lot of energy
well,
built.
you do. Haunted Hill House, the first two wells in the city are actually on their property.
Yeah.
And the lady that they claim, they talk about, they call it crazy water, crazy lady, and all this going around. Well, that lady was actually Deborah Renfro, and Deborah Renfro lived in Haunted Hill House. Her sister owned the house. I believe she died in the house. And so that's a very historical property there. That house was a makeshift hospital, because one of the owners was a doctor. One was one of the original one of the first Texas Rangers. You've had the brothel and the during Prohibition, you had the brothel and you had the speakeasy, more or less. That's, a lot of those tunnels were dug to bring in moonshine and bring in
Right.
things like that. And
Outliers.
and from Hill House to the Baker Hotel, you have these very well-known people who could move about without being seen by going underground. They could go over to the house for the brothel. They could go over to the house, to drink, or they could send the women back through the tunnels. There's also talk that there were some babies that were stolen from the prostitutes and sold to some of these upper class citizens, and they would tell them, that the baby died and so on and so forth, but the mother, and but they were transporting people and things like that back and forth through the tunnels. I know the tunnels were there. We've talked to a lady who grew up, her father was he wasn't an architect, but he was something of that status, either for the baker or for the city. I don't remember which, but the lady who is now a nurse, she and her brother used to play in the tunnels.
Oh.
They have a picture that she's trying to find that was taken of her and her brother playing inside the tunnels. The odd part is, for a long time, there were all these cars when she was little, and they would play. There were all these old cars, like, from the early 1900s and stuff, because in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, so on, that were just abandoned inside the tunnels. And she said that the cars had people's personal property in them. Suitcase. Well, Mineral Wells is also a big occult hotspot, satanic hotspot too. That has a whole nother level of things within Mineral Wells. But that was her thing, is, well, what happened to the people who own these cars? They don't know. Then in the sometime in the mid 80s, a lady who worked for the city of Mineral Wells, who I know and I've spoken to, said that they cleared out all the personal property out of all the vehicles. They pulled all the vehicles out of the tunnels, and the city auctioned the vehicles off. And
Interesting.
a lot of this stuff, if you ask the city, no, there's no tunnels, no, there's no cars. There's a lot of records that disappear. There's a murder now that's 15 years unsolved that occurred in the most recent one at Hill House. And there's a lot going on with that as far as who the most likely.
Martha,
yeah.
what do they base the satanic theories on? What has been found for the satanic stuff? And was it affiliated with mafia or crime or what?
Well, I don't know. Just that there's several parks. There's that they have found areas where they would have done rituals. Rituals have done the people that lived in Hill House for 20 years, and their grandfather before them, they practiced the occult as well. And we know this from the girl who grew up in the house, and it was verified by other people as well, not just her. But no, there's places that you can go, and within the last 3 years, they actually went out. A bunch of volunteers went out and cleaned out all this stuff from this one park, where they had all sorts of stuff related to the occult from gatherings and rituals.
But the occult doesn't necessarily equate to satanic practices, because the satanic is specifically a religion that was developed as a result of the persecutions in Europe. So
but when I say that, we're talking about the dark side of everything. We're talking about just dark magic, dark arts, nothing good.
I just wanted to clarify that, because some of the nicest people I know are Satanists, and some of the meanest people I know are Christians. So it's just, it's just no offense to anybody on either side of that fence. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody's watching, kind of thing. Now, if I can ask, I wanted to dial back just a second, because a while back, Deborah was asking about levels, and the different levels of things have been mentioned, or layers. Now, I've had experiences my entire life. I'll be honest, from being a small child, just simple things as knowing when somebody's coming up the road, or never losing my car keys, always being able to tell my mom where her car keys were. And, I had my friends when I was little, if you were. And my grandmother, like I was visited by my grandmother the night that she died. She woke me up and said, "You need to go take care of your mom. She needs you now," kind of thing. And so I've lived in houses that have had like documented histories of of activity, if you will. I've actually personally experienced activity where literally I heard the door slam, heard steps running up the staircase, and then all of a sudden the door to the bathroom slammed, and then I heard this crash, and I walked in there and my shower curtain had literally just been ripped down. This one particular house in Fort Worth was like that. It was one of the oldest homes in Fort Worth that I lived in. And so, different levels and layers of things. So the reason why I ask this is because I've experienced energies or what I would perceive to be a spirit, but I didn't necessarily consider it a haunted house other than just an occupied house. Because when I think haunting, I'm thinking like the movie Poltergeist, and I'm thinking, the haunted Hell House movies and things like that, where there's like violence kind of things going on, or Amityville horror kind of stuff. That's when I think haunting. I don't think haunting when there's a little old lady, she died here 100 years ago and she's just humming in the background. To me, that doesn't feel like haunting uh to me. But would that be considered a haunting under most
Well,
things, or just
most,
activity? Or
well, most likely that would probably be considered residual, because you have a
okay,
residual, which is totally different. Well,
yeah.
you have things like that were everyday things that occurred over and over and over again. And after they're gone, it's like they burn in something into a tape, and it's just something that plays. It's not it's not the person even there. And you can have
Mhm.
residual in a house, but
It's
the
the
residual that's
energies.
there could be from a living person, could be from a
Yeah,
living person too.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the emotions and the energy. Yeah, yeah. And
Because like I walked into my house in Buffalo when I bought it, and I wasn't there the first day when we were in the middle of the cleaning. All of a sudden I'm breaking out singing 1950s music, and I'm like, why am I singing this music? And then I got this impression of an older lady from that time period, and I'm sitting here trying to dust at the top of the cabinets. It's like I kept hearing this sensation. You're not doing that right. You're not doing that right. I finally had to say, listen, lady, this is my house now, not yours. If you're gonna stay, be quiet. Let me clean. Kind of thing. So, that I get what you're talking about, that energy, that residual
yeah, and and
thing.
a haunted would be more where the spirits stay there when they
Hmm.
interact with us, interact with the animals. That would be haunted. Then you have like Hill House, you have the haunted, you have things passing through that may be
So
there
like,
from, that
mhm.
come and go, or they may come and go. And most of the stuff there comes and goes, but there's all sorts of activity there. I've been scratched, I've been bitten, I've had missing time there. Doors have opened and closed in front of me.
Yeah,
Hissed at,
that.
growled at, audibles, conversations. I mean, there's all sorts of things, that is a haunted house.
You should be used to
Okay.
that though. I growl at you all the time.
Yeah,
I
I
grow up.
like I said, I just was wondering because I know like so many people, their experience is watching those shows, or
Exactly.
their experience is watching movies like Poltergeist or Amityville horror, things like that. And so I just trying to break it down, because like I have my experiences, and I always consider my experiences to be more of a spiritual nature and more of a gift than a thing. So I don't ever look at things, but like in that one house, like literally in Fort Worth, like with that door slamming, and I know it was closed, and with the shower curtain being ripped down and the water
Yep.
when it was off, kind of thing. Or like my remote control literally disappeared. I literally sat it down on the arm of the couch, walked in the bedroom for 5 minutes, walked out, it was gone. I was looking for the remote control, and it was down at the other end of the hallway, sitting on the edge, teetering like this on the edge of the landing for the staircase. Things like that I would consider, okay, there's activity, there's possibly a haunting here going on. But where So I just wanted to kind of break down that concept of different levels for people, because like I said, it starts with those creaks and moans, and people are just, oh, it's haunted, and maybe it's not. And then
Well,
there's
even if it
the
is or
impressions or the
isn't,
feelings that you
it
get.
it's about whether or not it makes you uncomfortable. I have a lot of people say, "Oh, Grandma Moses lives here, but don't get rid of her. I like having her here," that type of
Right.
thing. So it's, it's about the comfort level that you have. It's like with the house that we're talking about in Sulphur Springs, the client's comfortable with her house finally. She wasn't comfortable, and now she is. And she's even expressed regret because they're looking at moving because she wants to be closer to her family. And
Yeah,
now
because
she does.
the house was just relisted, so now it's up for sale.
Yeah. So,
If anybody
you know,
wants a haunted house, or a house with activity, and all the furniture, because they're selling it, house and furniture all in one. You get all the antique furniture.
Yeah.
God, I'd buy it in a minute. I would buy
If
that house.
if I only had the money, because I love a house with activity. Maybe I'm weird. I love a house with activity, and it's like the house that we have here. Yeah, I mean, that's impression kind of thing. Deborah can tell you she's been in my house. Luann's been in my house as well. I haven't had any of the physical activity of some of the houses that I've had, but I can always tell that something was here or is here. But they're quiet, they're peaceful, they don't disturb me, they don't wake me up in the night. But Mark has sworn that he has seen things out of the corner of his eye. He swears he's heard noises or voices, and I'm just like, well, maybe you have. Maybe they just like you more than they like me. I don't know. But I love a good activity house.
When we were in Sulphur Springs, the energies there kind of latched on to Deborah, because she was the one answering,
Bless you.
asking the questions. Sorry. So
I would
Well,
I would buy that house. I would buy that house though, just to screw with the ceiling fan guy. The ceiling fan guy is a hoot. He is an absolute hoot. He's just full of fun and piss and vinegar. And he's just kind of coming into his own. And he was as shocked as anybody when I could jerk him around. So
well,
he may be
I kind
mad
of think
when
of
we
it
get
like
back.
this, and my impression is this. I think oftentimes the spirits that attach themselves to houses, or if there is any there, or the energies, they've gone so long without being acknowledged, much like older people that are ignored by their families, that the minute they know that you're aware of them or you speak to them or what have you, they latch onto you. It's like that old person at the doctor's office or on the bus that nobody ever talks to them. And as soon as you smile, all of a sudden they're telling you their life story, and they want your attention. And I feel like that happens sometimes. It's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to just keep tapping you on the shoulder, or I'm going to keep blowing in your ear or something until you really, really pay attention to me, kind of thing. So does that really happen a lot for you guys, or is that just me being twisted?
no,
Well,
it happens.
when I do my investigations, initially when I do like go do an interview at the house, I may not know. A lot of times I may know a little bit, but not a lot. And as I'm doing the interview and gathering information, before I were to even do an investigation, I'm going to research, because of exactly what you said. When I can go in and possibly know who it may be, and I can address, and this has happened to me, I don't know how many times I've done this. You go in and address a specific person. A lot of times they just want their story told, or they want to feel like somebody knows their story or the correct story. So when you're in there and you're talking about it, and they find peace sometimes, because sometimes they're just there because they want it to be known. It's important to them. And once somebody knows and they'll feel comfortable, then they move on sometimes. But that's a lot of it. They do. They get, yeah. And it's not that they're going to latch on and follow you places or anything. They just, once they're acknowledged, sometimes that's all it is. Just acknowledge that person. And sometimes with some homes, do something simple, like maybe if you have their photo, put their photo on the wall. Just do something to acknowledge this person, was there. And then
But see, that's why I like doing investigations in 2s or 3s, because Martha always does investigate. I don't like going in blind, but I only like doing that because I know Martha has already investigated it. But then I do what I do and then she can validate what I'm hearing or picking up or whatever. And so I know that I'm on the right track or not, because frankly, I always question my input. I question it more than anybody. Am I really hearing this? Is this what I really know? Is this what I really am picking up? So she's my check and balance system, and Luann is my check and balance system because she's a great researcher too. But I like doing my readings cold. I like doing my investigations cold. I like doing all that cold, because then I can put the pieces together and see if they make sense without having anything to filter through. I don't like having my filters involved. So
Yeah, I always do research on the property, when it was built, where is it, what part of the area, even historic past, when we're doing an investigation.
So
you know,
like when Martha calls and says, let's do this investigation, I'm like, do you think it's valid? And she goes, yeah. I won't even let her really give me a lot of the background. I just go with her instincts and stuff, because I like going in cold,
Yeah.
but that's just me. I don't recommend that for everybody. I absolutely do not. And I absolutely do not recommend you do anything by yourself.
No.
2 is the minimum. 3 is really the great number, because you got a check and balance, and then you've got a screamer. That's what I call them. So that they're the ones that can call bullshit on everything. If the other 2
Hey,
get
there were
caught
no
short.
screamers involved when the 3 of us were there.
No, but you got to have someone to break the tie if there's a tie on, something. So
And bring the pickle juice.
Yeah.
yeah, I had someone ask me about the pickle juice picture. The pickle juice was because I was nauseated. And pickle juice is a great way to calm your stomach down quickly. And it also levels out your electric lights. And since I had vertigo, even though I knew I'd had plenty of fluids, it's also good at helping to level out your energy, and to getting rid of any extra acid you have in your system, and any nausea. And it's just, I don't know, it just zaps you back to reality. So that's why the pickle juice. Everything I do has a reason. You may not like it, or it may not make any sense, but everything I do has a reason.
Because if you are feeling off balanced, replenishing your electrolytes is a really good way to kind of get you back there.
Yeah, and I was about ready to hurl, so I needed something to calm my stomach down. So I went about to give
You found something that I hadn't found yet. I hadn't realized there was a portal there. So
Well,
you found the portal.
Luann, tell Martha. I don't think we've talked to Martha about this. Luann and I talked about the portal, and we started describing it together, and we saw it identically the same. So
yeah, because originally we were kind of thinking, well, maybe it's a stream, underground stream. And I said, there is underground water there, but that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing something that's coming up from there up to the house. And I said, I see just a kind of it's a more or less a circular shape, and I see white around the top. And she goes, well, I did too. And I said, and then the tunnel part, it's kind of wavy, but it appears soft on the inside, like it's had something added to the inside. She goes, exactly. So, when you compare notes like that, it's easy to say, because it's easy for me to dismiss it like, oh, well, you're just making this up.
Well, I was going to dismiss the portal idea because it didn't make sense to me the way I saw it. It wasn't man-made. It wasn't natural. But the thing that got at me was the ring of light around the opening of it. But the minute that Luann started describing it, and it was almost identical to how I could visualize it in my mind, I was like, okay, so it's a real deal. That's where this check and balance system comes in. Because I'll be honest with you, I know I'm gifted, but I think I'm crazy. I do. I mean, because there's no rhyme or reason or logic to a lot of the things that I know or do or have happened to me. And I like having witnesses that go, oh no, that really happened, Deborah, because otherwise I would tell you that I hallucinate 90% of my time. I would, because it doesn't make any sense. But like Martha, I have been bitten, I have been clawed, I have been scratched, I have been kicked down and kicked. I mean, I have had it all happen, and if I did not have witnesses to verify this stuff, I would have thought, my God, what kind of disease do I have? It doesn't fit any of the normal
Well,
DSM.
and
you
we were
know?
doing something as simple as trying to read each other's auras once upon a time in a dark office. It was just kind of, we had a candlelight and and I said, I just don't think I'm seeing it. And she said, well, do you see those orbs over there? And I went, oh, you see those too? It's because I thought that I was hallucinating,
Yeah. And I think that's healthy. I think if you don't question yourself on a regular basis, you have lost touch with reality. You've got to have that check and balance. That's why I tell everybody I'm the devil's advocate of the group, because I question everything. I
Well, and
question
don't you
everything,
think
even
that's the other
myself.
reason we want to have this workshop is we want people to realize that they need to get in touch with their energy and the energy around them, and how that's possible.
Yeah. Martha, you got anything to add to this?
Oh, y'all are doing great.
Thanks. That's a compliment. Because Martha will usually come and go, you didn't do this, Deborah, and you forgot to tell. And you didn't bring this up.
That's right. That's right.
She's my worst critic.
Hey, at least I can do that.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't care. I'll just say I'll do it again better, So
Well, that's a part of the checks and balances, really.
all right. So we're going to do this thing in Sulphur Springs, July 29th. We had the wrong date originally. I took all those down. It's July 29th. It's going to be from 8 in the afternoon until
1 in the afternoon.
I'm sorry, 1 in the afternoon to 8 at night. We're going to have a
To
training session.
midnight. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You're right. 8.
8:30.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
loose. Okay, we're going to have
Okay.
a training session on how to ground yourself and to protect yourself from energy, all kinds. We're going to have a hands-on training with the basic ghost hunting, ghost investigation equipment stuff. Martha's the expert on that. I just kind of look at it and go, what is that shit? But it's all EMF based, radio wave based and stuff. So there is a science to it. I just don't know it. We will break for dinner and you'll be on your own for dinner. Then we will come back to the house and we will go room to room with the equipment and see what we see, hear what we hear. There'll be note taking beforehand so you can compare your notes during the day of what you pick up later on that evening. You can contact me on Facebook or Deborah Colleen Rose at Gmail. The cost is $75 and that is a treat and it is a deal considering what you're going to get from this. And it is limited seating, spacing, whatever you want to call it. So I would think about signing up and reserving your place pretty quick. So
Sooner better than later.
yeah. All right, Luann, start it. We're going to have everybody tell people how to find you, how to get a hold of you, and we're going to wrap this up today.
Herballoo.com, HERBAL-LU.com, herballu1105 at gmail.com. And those things are the best.
Now, Martha, where are you going to be speaking next? When's your next speaking engagement? She don't know.
See, I don't know. Well, I've got September,
calendar?
October, November. I know I'll be in South Carolina. I'll be in Arkansas. I'll be in Oklahoma. I'll be in Texas. I'll be in Jefferson first Saturday in November. I believe it's the 3rd in November that I'll be up in Oklahoma. South Carolina is September. I can't think of where the other one is in September. October will be Halloween will be Little Rock, Arkansas. It's our Arkansas Paranormal Expo. That thing is really cool. There's an event going on that Paraflix is putting on in Ghost Hunter Girls in Mineral Wells. I'll be there. Also in October. And then there's another one there's 3 in October. I can't remember. So the best thing
You
is
better be here for the Adolphus Hotel. You better be here
for the
for
other one.
Yeah.
That's the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. The 3 of us are doing an investigation in October of the Adolphus Hotel in downtown Dallas. but it is not open to the public. If you want to go, you have to go join Texacom, which is an event planning networking group. So if you're in the event planning business of it, go join them and you can come. So that'll be interesting. And then Martha's book is on Amazon. Is it on Amazon still?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, The Haunted Hill House Where Spirits Speak. And contact me for the paranormal profiling book. The one that's out now, there's one in Amazon as well, but that one, the publisher is no longer in existence. They're still selling the books as ebooks for myself and the other authors I had. They owe me money. We're out of contract. They're violating copyright. But I am coming out. Yeah, but I am coming out, and Deborah helped contribute to it too, with the paranormal profiling 2, which is an advanced version of how to interview people and look for signs of deception and so on like that. And that'll be out sometime, in the next few months.
As soon as I get Martha's schedule, I will put that up on the DFW paranormalinvestigations.com website as well, as soon as I nail down all those dates. So you can check that site to see where she'll be speaking. So we'll have that up here soon. I'm just getting caught up on the websites. All right, Miss Baruti, Spa Goddess Extraordinaire. How do they find you?
www.barutispa.com, or I can be found at Baruti Spa on Facebook, or Baruti _spa on Instagram. Email address is info@barutispa.com or barutiknows@gmail.com.
Good. So I'm Deborah Colleen Rose. If you want to get more information about the paranormal or spiritual awareness, I do spiritual coaching, deborahcolleenrose.com. We also have an event service where we do card readings and handwriting analysis and things like that at events. And that's Smiles of Smiles Events. They're the ones that sponsor this podcast. And of course, I still have my private investigation company based upon the facts, ma'am, just the facts. And that's isgu.com, and email deborahcolleenrose@gmail.com. So we'll figure out what we're going to talk about next week. We'll see you again next week, and go sign up for that class if you want to come to the investigation next month.
I'm voting plastic surgery. Who, what, when, where, and why.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Ta-ta for